Donald's presidency is not about governing, something about which he knows nothing. It's about extracting as much money and power as possible for himself and his inner circle of grifters. In fact, it's all a big grift. This week, Donald got called out on one of his latest scams in a sit down interview with Laura Ingraham, of all people. Even she wasn't buying this. Take a look.
Housing costs are still out of reach, and another thing that your administration is trying to tackle. Many Americans, the average age of first-time home buyers are now up to age 40, which is sad. The country you and I grew up in.
I inherited that. Look, you have to understand.
Right, but let me get to the question, though, because your housing director has proposed something that has enraged your MAGA friends, which is this 50-year mortgage idea. So a significant MAGA backlash, calling it a giveaway to the banks and simply prolonging the time it would take for Americans to own a home outright. Is that really a good idea?
It's not even a big deal. I mean, you go from 40 to 50 years, and what it means is 50, you pay something less from 30. That some people had a 40, and then now they have a 50. All it means is you pay less per month. You pay it over a longer period of time. It's not like a big factor. It might help a little bit. But the problem was that Biden did this. He increased the interest rates, and I have a lousy Fed person who's going to be gone in a few months.
It's never, ever, ever his fault. Ever. Poor guy. All right, first of all, it is sad that the average age of a first-time home buyer is 40. Now, right now, the housing standard is a 30-year mortgage. So if you buy a house at 40, you won't have that mortgage paid off until you're 70. Obviously, because we're not Donald and we can do basic arithmetic, with a 50-year mortgage, you would be 90. So we're talking about saddling people with a lifetime of debt. Now, as he said, this is actually true. Monthly payments would be lower, but not that much lower. On the flip side, what is the cost of paying interest for 2 more decades? Well, they would be staggering. Mortgage lender Jordan Nutter broke down the numbers. Take a look.
Something major is being proposed. So that's a 50-year mortgage, okay? Traditionally, we look at 30-year mortgage options, but the White House is proposing a 50-year option. And you may be thinking, that's going to help save me money at the end of the day. What does that look like? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to share it with you. So let's take a $400,000 loan on a 30-year term at 6.5%. You're paying just over $2,500 a month for your principal and interest. However, if we do that on a 50-year term, you're about $2,254, which saves you about $273 a month. And you would think that's great. And you might be saying, well, Jordan, that's wonderful. Like, that's a good chunk of money to help me save every month. And you would be right. However, let me give you a little bit more information. So let's look at the whole picture. On a 30-year mortgage, in total, you would pay roughly $910,000. The interest portion of that $910,000 would be about $510,000, okay? However, if you look at a 50-year term, $952,000 is going towards interest, which is a difference of $442,000. At the end of the day, if purchasing a home is on your list of things that you want to do in this life, then I'm for sure the person to call and help you with that. However, if a 50-year mortgage gets passed, and this is what the numbers look like, which they are because I help people every day, saving $273 a month to then pay an extra $442,000 for the life of the loan is ridiculous. And in my opinion, not the way to fix this housing crisis, but hey, that's just my 2 cents.
Well, it's a 2 cents. It's completely legitimate. Now, personally, I find the fact that with a 30-year mortgage, you'll be paying more in interest than the house is worth. That's troubling enough. But of course, hopefully, the home you buy will become more valuable during that 30-year period. But with a 50-year mortgage, to be paying almost $1 million in interest on a $400,000 house, who benefits from that? Cui bono, as they say in Latin. Well, obviously, the mortgage lender. That's who. And that's why Donald is pushing this, because a lot of mortgage houses will become much more wealthy if they can scam enough people into signing up for a 50-year mortgage. And of course, the grift continues. Many Americans are struggling right now because SNAP benefits were frozen. SNAP meaning food stamps, essentially. This happened during the government shutdown, and because he's a bit of a monster, Donald decided not to tap into the emergency funds, which would have extended SNAP benefits. Also, during the government shutdown, other social services were also slashed. This week, Donald made a big promise to those Americans who were struggling right now. Watch this.
Without tariffs, this country would be in such trouble, as they were for many years. That's why we owe $38 trillion. And one of the things we're going to do, we're going to issue a dividend to our middle income people and lower income people of about $2,000. And we're going to use the remaining tariffs to lower our debt. We're going to be lowering our debt, which is a national security thing. So we're doing a lot of good work. And the numbers were reported so incorrectly. The real numbers are trillions of dollars have been taken in or gotten in terms of investment from the tariffs. And so if that were ever reversed, it would be a disaster. Frankly, it would be a national security problem for our country.
I thought it already was a national security problem for our country, which isn't. See, he can't even lie well anymore, which is shocking considering how much he's lied in his life. Okay, couple things here. First of all, the tariffs have been a disaster. And if we were indeed taking in trillions and trillions of dollars, why is our debt still so high? And why couldn't we use some of that money to feed our children, right? Here's the other thing. Donald says that he's so deeply worried about the national debt that it is a national security issue. Well, pop quiz. Name the one president who has increased the national debt more than every other president combined. Yes, that guy. He lies about everything. He has lied about tariffs and their usefulness and how great they are. How could we possibly believe that he is going to send every American a $2,000 check? Also, by the way, that's called a bribe. Donald has mentioned these checks several times with zero logistical information, which is par for the course. Numerous confused readers asked Snopes, a publication that tells us whether something is true or false or some kind of conspiracy theory, whether they would be receiving this $2,000. So the publication dug in and found, quote, while Donald did speak publicly about giving everyone $2,000, he did not specify when and how such payments would take place. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told the news media that he had not spoken to Donald about this plan, but added that such dividends, quote, could come in lots of forms, in lots of ways, unquote. Donald also did not specify in his post who would qualify for such dividends and whether children would be included, unquote. Ah, yes, the joys of never, ever using specificity to explain your ridiculous, unrealistic plans. In other words, this is just another empty promise, or in common parlance, a lie. But before we go on, the only way to combat the grift of the Trump regime is to amplify the truth of what's going on. So please like and share this video. And if you believe in our mission, please subscribe to the Mary Trump Media channel. And then there's a different kind of bribery we need to talk about. A few weeks ago, Donald held a dinner for leaders of the tech industry, during which he admitted that he thinks he's a king. And then he rambled on about his obscene and obscenely expensive ballroom that he demolished the East Wing in order to build. Watch this.
And so we're going to have a phenomenal ballroom. This is going to be one of the best anywhere in the world. There won't be anything like it, actually. And it's 4 sides of glass, beautiful glass, but totally appropriate in color and in window shape and everything else with the White House, moldings. So it's going to be very much in keeping with the White House. For all those years, they wanted it, and now they're going to get it. And because of you, they're going to get it. And me too. We're all in this together. And I mean, I have so many friends, and so many of you have been really, really generous. I mean, a couple of you, I'm sitting here saying, sir, would $25 million be appropriate? I said, I'll take it. You know, it doesn't take too many 25s to get it done. But a lot of you have been really fantastic. I thank you very much. You were great.
Yeah, what's $25 million between friends? 25 million here, 25 million there. And yet, we must let American children starve. The so-called donors, well, can you say quid pro quo, that we know of range from those in the tech industry who were at that dinner, to defense contractors, to wealthy individuals. Some of these include the heads of Google, Amazon, Meta, Lockheed Martin, and the Winklevoss twins, of all people. It appears that these donations actually come at a cost for Donald. This week, consumer advocacy organization Public Citizen reported that ballroom donors have over $279 billion in federal contracts. I'm sure that's an accident or a coincidence. And more than half of the companies that contributed have had federal probes into various wrongdoing, including everything from breaking labor laws to ravaging the environment. Public Citizen co-president Robert Weissman said in a statement, quote, "These donors have massive interest before the federal government, and they hope to undoubtedly curry favor with and receive favorable treatment from the Trump regime. Millions to fund Donald's architectural whims are nothing compared to the billions at stake in procurement, regulatory, and enforcement decisions," unquote. Yes, again, these are not donations. These are bribes. This is quid pro quo. And we need to remember, as the people who are quote unquote donating to the ballroom already know, Donald is for sale. He has always been for sale. And tragically for us, he is for sale to anybody. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating, because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.